We will get started here then. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we are thrilled to be talking with the award-winning team at Backup Trust, and we're going to be looking at gaining stakeholder confidence and scaling mentoring success. My name's Jess from Mentor-Leap. Mentor-Leap is an award-winning, the world's leading mentoring software provider. I'm joined today by Marina, who is also from Mentor-Leap and has the pleasure of supporting the Backup Trust program in the day-to-day. I'm also joined by Roman and Jax, who are the mentoring coordinators for the team. So there's lots that we can learn from them today, and they've done a really great job of facilitating their program. A little bit of housekeeping. We do welcome questions, so do feel free to pop them in the chat. I know we've had some questions ahead of time, which is always great to receive. But if you do have anything that comes to mind, do feel free to share them. And we will be sharing the recording of today's session. So if you've got any colleagues that want to have a look and learn from the Backup Trust team, do check your spam folders. They've got a nasty habit of slipping in there. A couple of things that we're going to cover today. We're going to start by thinking about why Backup Trust are running a program and learning from the team here. We're going to deep dive into running the program and what really goes into that day-to-day, as well as how to measure success before we think about looking to the future and what's next for the Backup Trust program. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so we can all talk to each other. Thanks both for joining us today. First thing we want to know is how did the mentoring program start?
Thank you for having us on, Jess and Marina. The mentoring program at Backup started around 2004. We were looking at ways of supporting people with spinal cord injuries. So Backup is a charity that supports people with spinal cord injuries. And it's not just the person with the injury, it's also the people around them. So friends and family are included in that. And yeah, we started around 2004 to try and provide a formal or a bit formal support to people who have spinal cord injuries, just so that they can benefit from talking to other people with experience of living with spinal cord injuries. And providing that peer support has been immensely useful to people.
Great, glad to hear it. So in terms of if we go back to the start, how many people did you have on that program when it started compared to where we're at today?
Gosh, that's a difficult question. I wasn't around
with Backup
back then, but from what I know is we had one part-time staff member at that stage, and they trained, I believe it was about between 6 and 8 mentors that they trained around the first time, and that's what they had. So they had one part-time staff member and about 6 or 8 trained mentors to use. So that's how it all started back in 2004.
In 2004, so we really are going back in time there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now, your program today is at almost 400 participants when I looked this morning. So, of course, at some point, there's been this big growth within your program. At what point did you feel that it was essential to start bringing some sort of tool or software on board?
Well, thank you, Jess. Back in the day, I guess Backup, like most small charities that they were then, used a series of self-made Excel spreadsheets to record everything, and including conversations with both mentees and mentors. And it was very difficult to keep track of all that. And as a result, there was the inability to sort of capture and maintain accurate data on both mentors and mentees. And we very much relied upon our mentors and coordinators to have an encyclopedic sort of knowledge of all the people they've spoken to and their backgrounds and what have you. And clearly that wasn't sustainable. And I guess it was, we were also finding very, very difficult to generate appropriate data that we could then use to support the mentoring service that would then allow us to apply for extra funding to support the service. So it's imperative that we got all our KPIs and our data in a row. And this was purely very, very difficult in the early days.
Yeah, of course. And it's something that we hear pretty frequently when you launch a mentoring program and it starts on that smaller side, you do have that ability to sort of cobble it together a little bit with spreadsheets. But of course, as a program grows, as you say, you're relying then on potentially, in your case now, hundreds of mentors. It's important to have something that's going to provide that administrative support, and of course, always key in reporting. If we think about the program now, it's really interesting to understand how it currently runs, who does the admin, who's responsible for it. Could you give us a little bit more clarity on that?
Yeah, so both Roman and I are fortunate enough, we do this as a full-time job. So the mentoring side of backup is a really big part of backup itself. So we had 3 staff members. As of last week, we now have 5 staff members, some full-time and some part-time. But yeah, so 9 to 5, we support the mentees and mentors, and we do all the admin stuff that goes with our program. We do have a lot of checks and balances in our program as well, so it can be quite admin intensive, but thankfully Mentor Loop has helped to lighten that load for us in a lot of ways as well.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. So you've got, of course, you're, I suppose, not unique in the fact that as a charity, that mentoring element is a core offering. Whereas, of course, if we're thinking about other types of programs that might be ran, it could be an additional thing for employees, for example. So it's always interesting to really drill down into what that day-to-day looks like for you. You've mentioned there's some checks and balances in there, but in terms of managing the recruitment, what does that sort of thing look like?
Well, we receive referrals for a number of different sort of areas, and that could include from the spinal units where backup has a presence. It could be from the NHS service providers who contact us directly, or it could even be from self-referrals for people direct into our website. And once we get these referrals, they're checked in daily. And once we've made the initial contact with the mentee who's interested in the program, we get them to sign up to Mentor Loop. And once they've signed up, we can then start to identify the best appropriate mentor for them to speak to. So it's not just anyone on the same list. It's someone who's got the same sort of characteristics. Could be location of their injury. It could be the level of mobility, the things they want to talk about. And once we've identified that person, we then create the match using the Mentor Loop tool. And it's been invaluable to help us to do that. All our matches are recorded and we follow them through to their natural conclusion. And we also take impact measures at the beginning of the relationship and at the end. So again, we can monitor to see how effective that mentoring match has been. And again, that data is used to help us to justify future expenditure and further grants to support the program.
Wonderful. I did have a look at your program today, actually, and I noticed as part of your intake form, you do ask what people are there to get support with. And what's really striking about your program is you had over 80 different areas where people were able to support or were looking for support with. So, of course, the impact that you're having then is so magnified because there's so many different things people are getting support with, which is always great to hear. Are your participants spread all over the UK, or are you localized in any way?
No, they are spread all over the UK, and that's the part of the aim of backup is to support anybody within the UK who is affected by a spinal cord injury. And again, using something like Mentor Loop helps us to, like Roman said, it's about looking at all the different criteria that we match people on, and you mentioned there's about 80 different sort of topics that we can choose from, and we try to make the best matches possible. And yeah, using all the technology and all the means necessary to do that is what gives us sort of probably our unique selling point in that is that we try and match people as closely as possible with all the tools available.
Yeah, wonderful. And it does add some complexities when you think about, the entirety of the UK. How is Mentor Loop helping participants to connect with each other, given those potential complexities over area?
Yeah, it's helped us immensely. I mean, it's made it so much easier for the mentors and mentees to connect to each other. Prior to using Mentor Loop, we used to spend an awful lot of time arranging calls, trying to set meetings up and everything. And if people missed calls, it took up a lot of time, which essentially Mentor Loop is now freed up. And when they rearrange calls, they can do it themselves, and it puts the mentees and the mentors in control of the whole situation, which is great. We want people to feel like they are owning the program and they are trying to get the most out of it. And some of the new changes that you guys have made, so they're able to share their notes and the resources with each other as well. The goals that they are trying to achieve, it's upfront and they can all see it, so they can refer to that during the mentoring relationship. And there's so much more that Mentor Loop does that we didn't do in the past that we now do with the tools that you've provided through this the platform.
Wonderful, great to hear. And I know when we chatted last week, there was a big thumbs up from your participants about our new mobile app, giving people that opportunity to connect from their mobile phones. Let's be honest, that's where we all are most of the time. So I'm glad that that's had an impact for your participants.
Just to add in there, I think one thing that's so special about the program, if you don't mind me saying, is how it kind of pairs the really detailed knowledge that you have and the connection that you have with your mentors and mentees. So you've not lost that kind of human touch that your team provides participants in the program, while still finding a way to make it more scalable and saving some of the admin, which isn't always easy, right? Because sometimes people think, well, we're going to use a tool, we're going to try and make everything more scalable, but that would be losing out on that really special special connection, special support that you provide people at the time when they need it the most. And it really shows that, even when we have our conversations, we catch up every month or every couple of months. Just the knowledge you have of everyone on your program is baffling to me. It's something I really appreciate and quite rare to see in programs of this size. So well done.
Well, thank you. It's good to know that. But I guess one of our USPs is that all of our mentors have lived an experience, and they want to share their experiences, both good and not so good, with other people who have been affected by spinal cord injury. And many times, people with spinal cord injury just want to talk to somebody who gets it, who understands, who they can speak to openly and freely without being embarrassed about virtually any subject within reason. and that's why they come back to us, and they say that's what gives them that extra impetus to improve and become as independent as possible.
Wonderful. I know this isn't, sorry, Marina, I know this isn't a question that we prepared ahead of time, but it's something that came up the other day actually with a customer that I was speaking with about how a great program takes mentees and encourages them to be mentors once they get to the end of the program. Do you find, because of the nature of your program, that you do have that natural progression?
Very much so, yeah. We are quite fortunate that and it probably helps if people have a really good experience with a mentoring relationship. And because of the numbers that we have and everything, the majority of the people that we support through mentoring have a really good relationship. And like Roman said, they want to talk to somebody that gets it. And then that feeling of giving back to somebody is just a natural progression. And we do, thankfully, we do get a lot of people that come through the program as mentees, and then they become mentors themselves later on.
Great. Glad
Although
to hear
one
it.
slight caveat is we do normally ask most of our mentees to have at least a couple of years of experience before they can speak to a mentor. That's not always the case, but the majority of times. So then the experience they're relating to is based on what they themselves have experienced in that time.
Yeah, of course. And I suppose this progression is a measure of success. But what I want to sort of look to now is how you are measuring the success of your program. Naturally, we all know that measuring success is important, but how does measuring that success fit into your overall strategy?
Well, it may surprise you, but the demand for those affected by spinal cord injury for mentoring and support has never been higher. And without Mentor Loop, coping with this increased demand will be very, very difficult and probably unsustainable. So Backup has a 5-year strategy, and we're aiming to treble the number of mentoring matches made each year by 2025. And we'll also look to increase the number of volunteer mentors that we've trained each year by at least another 25%. So we use Mentor Loop to help generate our KPIs that in turn are used then to secure further funding for our service to keep it growing in line with demand.
Okay, so it's actually utilizing mental, utilizing those KPIs is helping you to, as the name of the webinar suggests, being able to maintain that stakeholder confidence. Taking that slightly deeper, are there any specific tools that Mentor Loop has had that has made that easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, like Roman said, part of our 5-year strategy was to increase it. And just over the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of increase in sort of take up of mentoring and everything. And last year, for the first time, we actually managed to over 300 successful relationships for the first time, and that was phenomenal. And we couldn't have done that without the tools that Mentor Loop provide. We have oversight on sort of the loops to see how active are people, and we can reach out to people and sort of give them little nudges, although there are custom nudges within the system as well. But we still keep sort of an eye on the relationship, so we know when people are speaking and when they're not speaking, and then can intervene with them. We've used a group loop for our mentors, so all of our mentors are in a group loop together, so they can share their knowledge and experience with each other. And as coordinators, we are able to reach out to them a lot easier and a lot quicker by using sort of the different tools that you've put in there. So if we want to send out a notification to all the active relationships, we can do that. Or if we want to send a message to all the current mentors, we can do that. There's loads of different things that you guys have provided that makes our life a lot easier. And we often use it to let the mentors and the mentees know about upcoming events within Backup, or upcoming events that they can participate in, major milestones. We've done surveys with them as well. And we also use it to arrange our drop-in sessions that we have with the mentors to try and upskill them and keep them engaged with us within the service.
If I can just briefly add to that, Jess, I think it's just to reiterate, but maybe an obvious point, but our mentors are as important to us as our mentees. Because all our mentors are volunteers, something we don't take for granted. And we like to support them as much as our mentees, because without our volunteer mentors, we don't have a service.
Well, Marina, is there anything that you would like to add? I know that you've been instrumental in supporting this program, and I know one thing that Jack's brought up there was that groups format. But is there anything that you would add about measuring success and some of the tools that have been utilized by Backup specifically?
I was just thinking there as Jack was listing some of our features, how great it is to work with you, because every new thing that we release or enhance, you guys are like, yes, we're going to put this to use straight away. Same like when we released the mobile app, we saw a great uptake from your participants. Same with group mentoring. So no, it's really a pleasure to work with people like you who enjoy the product so much. It definitely makes my life a lot easier. So no, it's a great working relationship from my end. Definitely.
It sounds like a two-way relationship to me, because it makes your lives easier, and definitely over the last 3 years, it's definitely made our lives a lot easier as well.
Glad to hear it. Here's one I prepared earlier. Do have a little bit of the feedback of your program. And of course, for some people who have joined us today, they may not have seen Mentor Loop, but we have a process at Mentor Loop which collects consistent feedback, sort of sentiment analysis through a series of pulse surveys. And I've got backups here. And what strikes me here is not just the quality of the sentiment that you receive, but also that consistency. As you can see, you're consistently hitting a really high score for that sentiment. And of course, I'm not going to read all of this lovely stuff out. But as you can see, some of the great stuff that are being said is an invaluable opportunity. Chats went really well, shared their story. Of course, we've removed some of the names from here, but generally that sentiment is really, really nice and high within your program.
If I could just add to that, Jess, we also use the sentiments from Mentor Loop to share with a wider Backup staff group. So we have a wellbeing channel on Teams, and we regularly post some of this good feedback with everybody, because it's all about sharing the good stuff that's happening in the background that maybe not everyone's aware of. And that always makes people feel a bit better.
Yeah,
Must be so nice for the rest of your team, yeah, to get some visibility
Yeah.
of the work that you do.
purposeful work. It's always important to keep your eye on actually what is the difference that you are making,
Eyes on the prize.
exactly. And as we've discussed, the difference you're making, the impact you're making is great. For those who joined us a little early, they've had a bit of a sneak preview of this, but congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand over to Marina because I know she's been instrumental in supporting your program, but also encouraging you to continue to apply for the awards. So, was there anything in particular, Marina, that encouraged you specifically to continue to encourage backup to be?
You mean nagging?
I would never put it that way.
I will always nudge or encourage or nag Backup Trust to apply, because it is such an amazing program in terms of, well, the reach, the way you've grown. I didn't actually know the program had been going since 2004 with like 6 mentors, but that really speaks to the way that you've been able to grow the program, provide such important support to more and more people at a time when they really need it. So, I mean, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. And also what I said earlier, like someone who champions the product as well. It's just a fantastic working relationship, but it really comes down to the impact on mentors and mentees that the team at Backup Trust are able to make.
Is there anything that anyone from Backup would like to add? I appreciate this is your 3rd year as award winners now, so you're 3 for 3, which is great. Yeah, how does this, in terms we've just spoken about the feel good and the work?
Just add to that we're very fortunate that we've got such an excellent working relationship with Marina and the team at Mentaloop, and all the little things that we've raised as things we'd like to be maybe slightly changed to suit our needs. Mentaloop have always come back very, very promptly and efficiently, and in the majority, if not all cases, have been able to sort something out for us that helped it work for us. And I think that's very, very important because that allows us to address specific challenges that are unique to us, and that working relationship. Well, it's got to be a win-win situation, isn't it?
Lovely, love to hear it. We've only got 8 minutes left, and I know we've got some questions that were sent over ahead of time today. People were very keen to have your input, but if we think about the future of the program, you've got an amazing program. It's gone from strength to strength. You're a 3-time award winner now. What do you think has been the key to your program success up to this point?
Jack?
I think it's the fact that people really want to engage with us, and we've got a really good mentor retention, which is phenomenal for us, and they're all volunteers that freely give up their time to support other people with life-changing injuries and everything else. So it's building on that and keeping that momentum going. And Marina talked earlier about that human touch. We can never underestimate that human touch that we provide to people with in this difficult situation, and that is what helps us to get the great results from it. It's like Roman said earlier on as well, it also helps us to get there with the funding and everything else that we are trying to secure with the program as well. Roman, you wanted to add something in there as well?
Yeah, I'll just add that not forgetting that mentoring is not just for our individual people affected by their life-changing injury, but the massive impact it has on their families as well. And Mentaloop has been great in helping us to reach out to family members as well, so we can help and support them as well. And that has been working very, very well indeed as well.
Good to hear it. Did you have something to add there, Marina?
I actually wanted to react with the heart emoji, but I accidentally raised my hand
up. I thought very
We'll take that.
formal.
We'll take that.
Yeah, I would have butted in, but I thought I can't find the reaction, so apologies.
I don't think they have it on webinar, unfortunately.
I mean, the one thing I would say that our mentoring program is evolving all the time. It's changing, and the great thing is that Mentaloop is keeping pace with our with our growth and with our needs, and we can only say thank you for that.
Oh, that's great to hear. Great to hear. So the final question I have for you officially today, before we jump into questions from other people, and you have already touched on this to some extent with the plans for the future, but what are the plans for the future? What's next for the Backup Trust mentoring service?
I mean, yeah, as Roman sort of said, we're a very ambitious organization, and we try and provide mentoring for everybody and anybody that's affected by a spinal cord injury. So we want to build on that, and mentoring has a very specific place in that role in the world, and we want to become a world-leading organization for others to be a beacon of hope when they are facing a life-changing situation, and to get them back on track again. If people have a need for mentoring, we want to be there to be able to provide it for them. And yeah, hopefully we can grow with you guys and just become that organization that we want to be.
Right. I love that. Love that. And it, as we've said on the numerous occasions during this webinar, the impact that you have, not just for individuals who are affected by spinal cord injuries, but also for their families is really exceptional. So, of course, we would love to support you in that growth so you can reach everyone who fits within that scope in your community.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, shall we open up for some questions? Shall we see? If you do have any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat here. I'm going to start off with a few that were sent over. I know there's a few people who couldn't join today and sent these questions over because they're keen to watch them on the recording. The first one I have here is really around that safeguarding piece, because of course within a charity environment, sometimes there are some additional complexities when it comes to safeguarding. Complexity is probably the wrong word there. But how do you handle, if you do need to, safeguarding within your program?
So when we train our mentors, and Roman sort of touched on it earlier as well, we've got clinical psychologists that actually created the mentoring program for us, and they actually provide the training for us to this day. So over 20 years ago, they got involved and they're still doing it for us. And part of that, big chunk of that training is about sort of safeguarding. And it's not just about looking after the mentees, but it's also looking after the mentors as well. And sometimes us as staff as well. We have potentially vulnerable people that we're supporting, and we have a duty of care to look after those people. So we've got a safeguarding team at backup. So anything, we call them red flags. So if there's anything that comes up and people sort of have any concerns, we follow the 3 R's, which is recognize, record, and report. And then based on what the safeguarding issue could be, we will then try and take the most appropriate action. Thankfully, it doesn't happen all the time or a lot of the time, but we do have things in place that will help us to look after our mentees and the mentors and us as staff as much as we can within the safeguarding boundaries that exist.
And I just support that by saying that if a mentee or a mentors in particular, have had a difficult conversation and they do come up, then we're here to support them. And, we encourage them to reach out to us, to share their experience and to talk to us, so we can give them some sort of room to reflect and take comfort from, they're doing what they can do. At the end of the day, they can't solve every problem. That's why, but we can only do so much. But if there is a genuine issue, then our safeguarding policies are in place to support the people concerned.
Right. It's about having that robust policy, isn't it? Of course.
Yeah.
The next question I have for you, and this is a bit of an unusual one, but I think probably my favorite question I've ever had sent over is, what's the best bit of your job?
Oh, I can easily answer that one. I've been doing my job now for 2 years, and believe it or not, I still get a real buzz when I've made a match.
Oh,
So when I can tick all the boxes, I've matched the right mentor to the right mentee, and I've got the first feedback that say they had a great conversation. It just makes my job worthwhile, and I just really get a buzz when I've made a good match.
Oh, that's great to hear.
I would like to add the sentiments onto that, because like you shared earlier on, when we get those feedback snapshots from people, that's immense. You can't trade that for anything else, and that helps us to stay encouraged and do what we do. But it also helps us to encourage the mentors, because we'll share the specific feedback because we know who's given us that feedback, and we'll share it with the mentor if it's a really nice piece of feedback from the mentee, and that encourages them to stay on as well. And it's just, yeah, when you take the end impacts, and somebody said, you know what, this has been fantastic. And especially when they become mentors themselves because they've had such a good experience. There's so many aspects of this job that is really fulfilling and just gives us the warm and fuzzies.
Love
And we're
it.
so fortunate to be part of such a fantastic team. And you know, a lot of charities all do great work, but I think we all genuinely feel the support we receive and give to one another makes it all very much worthwhile. And it is a very, very empathetic charity to be part of.
Wonderful, wonderful. If there are no more questions for today, final thing I do want to draw attention to is if anybody is listening and would like the support of Backup, where would they go to be able to contact you?
So we've got a website, so it's backuptrust.org.uk for them to reach out to us, and within that, if they look under support for you, they'll find our mentoring pages in there and ways of getting in touch with us. It's all done online nowadays. We've got a main telephone number as well that people can ring, which is 020-8875-1805. Wow, that took a bit of memory just to jot
Well done.
that.
Well
And
done.
while we're doing a backup plug, is just to say that mentoring is just one part of the jigsaw that Backup offer. There's lots of other services that we offer, be it from training, from activities, to getting involved, from fundraising. There's a whole plethora of different things. And we encourage both mentees and mentors to look at these things and get involved, you know, in other things as well.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Great to have this opportunity to talk about your program and some of the impact that you have for your people, mentees, mentors, staff, and long may this partnership continue and your program continue to flourish.
Thank you for having us on. It's been
Thank you for having us.
Absolute privilege here.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.